Hey, David here again for the Agile Broadcast. Welcome back to the channel. In my last video, we talked about discovery. This thing you do to make sure you're building the right thing. Something that's useful, valuable, something that produces the right outcome. Did I just use the word outcome? But what's the difference with output? Output, outcome? Let's find out. So first, let me tell you a little story. A story that Josh Seiden has been using and one that illustrates really well the difference between output and outcome. So imagine a car at a T-junction. Cars are supposed to stop, but they are not stopping, and they are supposed to turn right, but in fact a lot of them are turning left. So you decide we're going to install a stop sign and a panel that says no turning left. And everything turns out really well. They are made on time, they're really high quality, and there's no issues with the installation. The problem is, it was not successful, because you come back a few weeks later and you observe that the cars are still not really stopping and still turning left. And from that point of view, it was a big failure. So here you might say that the output, the creation and installation of the signs, was a success. However, it did not create the behavior change that we expected. In other words, the outcome wasn't a success. So let's explore this a little more. So you have output, which is the stuff we produce, the deliverables, the tangibles, the actual software features. And those outputs hopefully become outcome. What's outcome then is behavior change. So unhappy people become happy people. Customer satisfaction, that sort of thing. And like we've seen about the story about the car earlier, those outputs only potentially become outcome. That's a very important thing to remember, that outputs do not automatically translate into outcome. And another way to look at this is that the output is basically the what, and the outcome is the so what. We've delivered some features, some output. Now what? Does it actually change the user behavior? Does it actually create the outcome that we expected? Now there is another word I want to introduce now, which is the word impact. And impact is not quite the same as outcome. It comes afterwards. An impact is about your bottom lines, your KPI, your business capability, and how it grows over time. Basically all the business metrics that business leaders might care about. Now what we see is that business leaders will tend to focus on impact here. And the reason is simple, is because these high-level metrics are the one that tells you how the business is doing financially. On the other hand, the delivery teams, they focus on outputs. Naturally, this is where all their daily activities revolve around. Producing features, writing code, making new releases, etc. Well, the problem is that it makes this area here the missing focus area, which is an area where very few people actually pay attention to. And that lack of focus on outcome and behavior change is a real issue for most organizations, as they are missing on a key principle. So if you think about it, when we introduce a new piece of software, a new feature, beyond the delivery itself, what we are really looking for is a behavior change from the user's perspective. Because there is a before and an after the feature has been implemented. Once the feature is there, just like with the example with the car and the road signs earlier, you expect a change in the behavior of that user. You expect them to do things differently, maybe faster, maybe better, or maybe you've introduced a completely new thing that they've never done before. So why aren't more people focusing on outcome then? Well, output and impact are typically relatively easy to measure. They are quantifiable, they are things with metrics that you can easily measure and observe. On the other hand, outcomes, so behavior change and customer satisfactions, these are much more subjective, much more intangible and very hard to quantify. And the problem I have is that I see people who keep focusing on output and only output, and it completely distorts our definition of success, which must include outcome for sure. So let me show you here something that Jeff Patton once presented at the conference, which perfectly illustrates that point. So let's say we have a project where we delivered exactly what we said we would deliver, and it was delivered on time, and the outcome was positive. I think we can call that a win. Now imagine another project where the scope wasn't quite what we said we would deliver, but it was on time, and the outcome was positive. I think that's still pretty much a win. Now imagine another project where the scope wasn't quite what we said it would be, and it was late. Yet the outcome was still positive. I think you still pretty much win. But here's the thing. When a project has the right scope and is delivered on time, but the outcome is negative, that's where everybody seems to pretend to win. Now this is sometimes called the watermelon effect, where on the surface everything's green, all your reports are good, but at the core, the customer satisfaction is negative. When we are output driven, we tend to obsess about things like velocity and story points. And we often end up with a feature factory mindset and a mentality of the more the better. The problem here is that we are maximizing the wrong thing. Really, between output and outcome, we should be minimizing output while maximizing outcome. That's really the goal here. Maximizing output is really not the answer. Now that's it for this episode of the Agile Broadcast on output versus outcome. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you get a notification when the new video is out. And on that note, see you in the next video.